So, Moonraker was a darn sight better than Live and Let Die, and compared to Casino Royale, I don't really know. I finished it a few days ago, so it's not really something I've really considered. Moonraker is constructed and paced very differently from the first two Fleming novels. Bond does not go abroad at all. He spends his entire time in England, which is much to his disappointment and frustration that he has to go on this rather boring mission that he doesn't really consider to be very important or interesting or at all worth his time. He says to M that it should be given to MI5 or whoever else. It's not really relevant to him. And he goes anyway because that's what he does. And having earlier met Hugo Drax in the casino, who was a bit of a knob and cheats, and Bond exposed his cheating by beating him, we're then reintroduced to Hugo Drax at the Moonraker base in Kent, and Hugo Drax is quite a nice bloke. So throughout the whole novel, I'm basically questioning, is Hugo Drax a bad guy or is he a good guy and all that stuff. And eventually we obviously find out that Hugo Drax is a bad un. And Hugo Drax is such a fascinating character. He's written so brilliantly and so well, and such an interesting villain. He's completely different from the Hugo Drax we meet on the screen, played by Michael Lonsdale, who was obviously fantastic, but they only share a name. They're pretty different characters, I think, although people will inevitably disagree. And obviously we have Gala Brand as the Bond girl, no Holly Goodhead. Again, forget the movie. The movie doesn't exist. Put that to the wayside. Gala Brand is the Bond girl in this one, and we're not introduced to her for quite a while because Bond doesn't go on his mission to, investigate the Moonraker rockets for quite a stretch. There's quite a lot of just interesting stuff going on in London with the casino and talking to M. There's a lot of M in this, and then eventually Bond, much to his reluctance, goes to Kent, and then we start to get into the meat of the story. So there's almost quite a lot of build-up to the plot, and you're wondering, what will sort of happen, because they pace it in such an interesting way, or should I say Fleming paces it in such an interesting way. So there's that, and I really enjoy the scenes with Bond and M. M reminds me very much of the film M we see on screen, played by Bernard Lee. He's just this. It's almost playing in your head. You can almost hear the dialogue, and you can hear the characters, and it just works brilliantly in those scenes, because we haven't had much M before this. It's mainly been a bit of M, here's a mission, off you go, and pretty much the same in Live and Let Die, broadly. And we get plenty of M in this, and he even appears in sort of the epilogue at the end, and I think the whole novel is just really good. Bond basically arrives, and he is a bit suspicious why all of the workers are German, and why all the workers have moustaches, and there's just these little details that are throughout the whole thing that he finds a bit suspicious, and he's investigating, and it's not a mystery novel, it's obviously a spy novel, but it kind of feels a bit like a mystery novel that Bond is going through the rhythms of investigating. And of course, it is 10 years after World War II. I think it was published in 1955, so there's a lot of, Anglo-German relation stuff going on, which sounds boring, but it's quite interesting. And Hugo Drax is basically German, and he wants to destroy London with the Moonraker rocket. It's meant to land in the North Sea or something like that, and then he redirects it. He's going to redirect it, and it's going to land in London and basically bugger everything up. So that's very interesting. I mean, you're reading it thinking, oh, this is just kind of a apolitical Bond novel, the first of its kind, and it's not. And I'm not complaining about that, but it's very interesting how they focused on Germany. There's very little focus on Smersh in this, and there's no focus on the United States. It's exclusively English in this. He doesn't go abroad, and the villain has this sort of irrational hatred of England, or maybe it's rational from where he stands, but it's this complete hatred of England to the point where he wants to destroy England. There's this big old rant later in the novel where he goes on about he actually hates the blooming place, and it's constructed differently. This is a very different Bond novel. You read the first two and you think you kind of understand what a Bond novel is like, the formula and how Fleming writes and stuff, and then you just get introduced to Moonraker and you're kind of like, whoa, it's so different. And I really enjoyed Moonraker. That's the main takeaway. This isn't the most sort of in-depth Bond review. I'm sure if you want to find an in-depth Moonraker review, there will be one somewhere on the internet you can watch instead of this one. But the main takeaway is that if you want to read Moonraker, definitely read it, but you should probably read the first two first. You should read those so you have an idea of the world of Bond and M and the whole world, really. And then you get to Moonraker, where it just kind of gets thrown up in the air. Like, we're going to do something completely different. We're going to not take Bond abroad. There's going to be a huge build-up to his actual mission. Like, normally, in Live and Let Die, it's basically, wham, here's the mission. Straight away. He's in New York, and then there's another chapter which I think flashes back to his scene with M where he gets briefed. Here, there's several chapters before he even arrives in Kent. And of course, at the end of the novel, Bond gets exiled along with Gala Brand, the pretty decent Bond girl, just gets exiled for a month because the government want them out of the way to cover up the whole climax of the story. So I strongly suspect that will lead into Diamonds Are Forever, and I'll be a bit disappointed if Diamonds Are Forever has no reference of any sort to Moonraker. So those are my thoughts on Moonraker. It's really good, basically. What do you think of Moonraker if you have read it? And thank you for watching. Bye.